Okay, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Danielle Navas. I am a mentor and realtor here with Texas United Realty. And so I bring to you one of the most wonderful things that we hear about all the time. And well, some of you, maybe you have, and maybe you haven't heard about the City of Houston and the $30,000 in down payment assistance that they offer. Oh, somebody's not muted. So I want to go over this stuff with you guys, and of course, if you have more questions, you're welcome to reach out and all that good stuff. So, but give me a second. Okay, so it's quite the process, and I tell you, it's not for the weak at heart, because and that means for the realtor and for the actual buyer. Please mute yourself upon entry. There's so many people entering now. You gotta go through like every person to find them. Okay. There's gotta be a button. Nobody showed me the button. Please mute yourself. Almost. I'm almost there. Alright, guys, I don't mean for this to be so time consuming. Okay. All right. So hopefully no more interruptions on that. Okay, so I mean, really great program. Really great program. It's $30,000 that the client gets to use towards their house. Okay, and so the fact that they get to use it, it goes as equity towards them. Oh, chat. Oh, hello. And so it is not something that has to be paid back. It is forgivable, depending on how many years they live in the home that is required of them. There are some requirements that have to be met as well, too, for them to be able to qualify for this program. Okay, so I'm going to go through all those things and the processes and all that stuff. And trust me, it's going to sound very kind of like chaotic in a way, and that's because the process is a little bit chaotic. Please mute yourselves. And so, you know, it does take a lot of patience throughout the process, because it is one of those things where people, they need to be on it. They can't be somebody that, you know, takes several days to get back to you, that drags their feet, that doesn't respond, that says, oh, I'll get to it in another day because I'm too busy doing this or doing that. Please mute yourselves upon entry. And so, you got to take progress with fine. The unified symbols shift. Give me a second, guys. It's distracting. I apologize. Got it. All right. So, be sure that you have the patience for this as well, too, okay? Because it's going to be a lot of back and forth, a lot of you talking to your client, things like that. And so, and going back and forth with the actual company themselves. So this is not a regular program that you use with a traditional lender, how they have, you know, T-Shack or Seth or TDHCA and all those different programs that the lenders have. So this is a separate program entirely. So it's almost the process in which they have is that it's as if you have two lenders at the same time that you're responding to, okay? So they actually do not coordinate with one another initially. So you would submit an application with your traditional lender and everything and make sure that that client gets approved. It does have to be approved with the City of Houston and be in coordination with them. So not all lenders necessarily want to use this program because it is time consuming, it is extra steps, and they don't want to take those extra steps and get the same amount of money. Okay, so and it can be a little bit time consuming, and so some are not coordinated with them. I do have some great lenders that I can recommend that do also offer, you know, they work with these programs and, you know, all that good stuff. So do not be surprised if you have quite a bit of lenders that are like, well, I heard about it, but I've never actually done a transaction. And that's quite normal. because it's, again, just very time consuming, and people have to fit in within the parameters of what the program requires of them. And if it's not, again, somebody that keeps up with it, that moves, that pays attention, that is checking their email, that is, all these things, then it's not going to work out. Okay, so it's vital that these people are active participants in their home buying process. So it's like I tell people that, you know, it's $30,000. It's not just the basic, because obviously when you go through down payment assistance with a traditional lender, it's covering that 3.5% or that 3 or that 5% that's required of them as their minimal amount down. And obviously $30,000 is way more than a minimal amount down that's required of you. So let's kind of go over some of the things that we need here. Okay, so here's the website first off for us to start off with. Okay, and so they are, even though the coronavirus is still active and all those things, they are still in progress. They are still working, and they are still accepting applications. Okay, so that's the most recent information that I got from them. And so here on this website, and feel free to take a picture of the top left of the screen and stuff, and write that down and keep this with you, because there is what looks like another home buying assistance program that's from them, but it's not quite the same thing. So let me kind of catch you up a little bit. That what happened last year, summertime, basically, the whole entire city of Houston, how they give these $30,000, they were going under this very scandalous investigation, to where supposedly the money that was there to be used for the funds that were meant to be used were supposed to go to those that were affected by Harvey. And once they got audited, they came to realize that, hey, you haven't actually been doing that. And so, we're going to have to stop you in your tracks. And they had to start over again. And so the conclusion came to that those that apply have to have lived here during the time of Harvey, and they have to be able to prove it, either with a lease, a paycheck stub, a bank statement, a bill from their job or whatever it may be. Or a bill, I'm sorry, a utility bill from their house. And it would need to be from August 2017. So they would need to have that on file and be able to provide that and showing that they did live here during that time, because that would be one of their main requirements that they would require from that client. So here they do have all kinds of things and tools. The client will need to, if you see this, take each 8-hour home buying course. Okay, and there's different providers that offer that, and you have to go through one of their specific providers. And right now they are offering the class online, obviously because of the COVID thing. And so typically it's $100 depending on which class, which program you go to. And then some of them have coupons, and you can check out them as well too. I believe it's Avenue CDC. They're really big about helping the community and helping people become home owners. And so they have a coupon code as well too that you could use. And here are the different ones, the different places that are offering the classes. Now, not all of them are offering them online. I know they're catching up and getting things together, but they do have to take one of these 8-hour courses before they even apply to the program. So it's one of the required items that need to be turned in. So they will need to get a pre-approval letter from their mortgage lender as well too. So they do have to be able to qualify for a loan. I do have some people, like when I mention this to the public, they're like, oh, I really want to sign up, and how do I get these 30,000? And then they're like, oh, I have to qualify for a mortgage loan. I'm like, well, where did you think that you have to be able to buy a home to be able to put the 30,000 towards something? You know what I mean? So let's see, let's move down, guys. Here are these documents that you're really going to need right here to the left. Okay, and so different documents that may be required of the client, and you got to be ready for that. So here's an entire list actually of the items that they require of you. Okay, and this is a checklist that they need to take care of and have. All right. Their application, which is, this is what their application looks like. It's very simple. It's honestly just a whole bunch of like demographic information. And so let me have you take a look at the application that they have. So the first page isn't even anything. Here it's just name. They want to know everybody that's residing in the residence. Okay. And so they're also interested in knowing the income of those that are living in the household as well too, that are going to be living in this home and be contributing. Even if they aren't contributing, when they do their investigation as well too, they will see that somebody was, you know, receiving an income. For instance, I had a family that had a teenage daughter that worked at Jack in the Box, and they realized we hadn't put that on there, that she had, you know, was working at Jack in the Box. And through their investigations, they realized that she was, I mean, mind you, she was like 16. And so they realized that she was working, and they asked for her paycheck stubs and things like that. So they are aware of what's going on, and they do have an investigative team that looks into these kinds of things and making sure that what you say is true. So very simple. There's not a whole, there's just a few yes or no questions, some of which can be skipped depending, because this is also an application for people that maybe were affected by Hurricane Harvey and need help rehabilitating their home and getting it back on track. And there's still people that are living in half, you know, half sheetrock houses and stuff. So there's that application so that you can see what that looks like. So it's very minimal, but more than anything is that checklist. So as you look at the checklist and all the different things, I mean, mind you, for minors, they're asking for birth certificates and things like that. So they are asking for 3 months pay stubs, okay? 3 months of bank statements, 1 month of your savings, okay, most recent year's income tax returns and stuff. They also, even if you're a single person that has no children, you do have to fill out a no child support affidavit, which is also in this section where I mentioned to you as well too. So here's your, you know, if somebody in the household is an adult and doesn't have any income, they have to fill this out. If they, you know, they have to show that they don't owe any child support and things like that. So here are some of the documents that they're going to require of you that's being asked of you here on this section. Okay, so they have to have not been a homeowner within the last 3 years. Okay, so if it's been more than 3 years, they are considered a brand new homeowner. They are not a second-time home buyer kind of thing. Okay. The other thing is that there are income limitations. Okay, so go away. Let me see. All right, so here they actually updated these in October of last year, actually. And so they have raised their income limitations. So there's an idea to give you how many people can live in a household and how much money they can make. So many times what ends up happening for eligibility requirements from these folks is that they don't end up, you know, they make too much income, and sometimes it's by very minimal income. I even had a client at one point, you know, they initially didn't qualify, and then because of the way that they did their calculations throughout the year, they didn't initially qualify, and then towards the end of the year, once they received their last check of the year and they were able to see those calculations, they were like, oh, okay, so you didn't make that much money this year. Well, let's go ahead and, you know, give you the grant and everything and move forward. So you are required to live in the house for a minimum of 5 years, okay? So, and that means to say that you're not going to sell the house, okay? So I tell especially my young couples and things like that, I'm like, hey, if this isn't going to work out, I would strongly suggest that you guys find a way to coordinate and maybe rent out the house for a year or two until you reach that 5-year mark, and then see about selling it. Okay, so, but at that point, it is forgivable. It does not have to be paid back. If the client happens to sell the home prior to those 5 years, they will pay back a portion or percentage of throughout that time, and pay a portion of that back too. So I mean, it's really awesome if they do, you know, they stick with it for 5 years. That's $30,000 of equity that they get back in their pocket to be able to use towards their next house or their next venture or whatever it may be. So that's just free equity that's in there. And so this has this can be combined with other programs as well too. So I had it actually, we no longer have the program, but the Wells Fargo Lift program was offering $15,000. And so I was able to combine this $30,000 with the $15,000. And so the client received $45,000 towards their home. So you can actually use this with new construction as well too, okay? So the trick is that we have to pick a property that is somewhere within the Houston city limits. So there's the Houston city limits. If you notice, you know, Pasadena is obviously off limits. We can't buy a house in Pasadena, can't buy a house in Channelview, can't buy a house right here in this little blocks right here of South Houston. We can't buy a house here in Bel Air, can't buy a house here in Katy and use these $30,000, okay? So, and it's a real funny map here as well too. It's just got all kinds of weird ways. So the best way for you to check and see if this house would qualify, because initially you would have your client sign up for this program prior to, okay? If this is something they're like, yes, I want to try it, I want to give it a shot, then they would need to get all of their documents together on that checklist and all that good stuff, and then turn it in and see if they qualify first, because the process takes about 2 months or so from the moment in which you have a contract submitted. And that's especially right now with how the COVID-19 thing has been affecting business and stuff. And so while they're still functioning, it's still going to be about 2 months from the point in which you turn in your contract. So that's a tricky little thing as well too, because you've got to convince that listing agent, hey, can you hang tight for us for 2 months, you know, because we really want to take advantage of this program. You know, and it just depends on what kind of agent you're working with, because, you know, there were times where I thought it was, you know, going to close in about 45 days or so, and then it ended up being closer to like 60 days. And, you know, it took a lot of, you know, please give us time and please coordinate with us. And, you know, and the way we made that work as well too is by saying, hey, we'll work with you on the repairs if you're willing to work with us on our closing date and just be patient with us. And luckily that worked out as well too. And so you can also use this with new construction, like I mentioned. So I used it, for instance, on a new construction out here in Southwest Houston, Southeast Houston over here. I'd say it's closer to over here. And so, it's great because it allowed the time for the client to go through the program while they were constructing her house as well too. So it was something, of course, brand new for those lenders, but the lender is in coordination with them. And while they weren't too happy about having to go through the process, you know, nevertheless, they went through it. And thankfully that client got their new construction house and received $45,000 in their down payment assistance on that house, because they coordinated it with the other program that was in existence at the time. So anyhow, so just to kind of give you a for instance of what you're looking at. So if you just have a client, for instance, that only wants to live in Pasadena, obviously the conversation about this program is just don't even worry about it, because it's not something they're going to consider. And again, make sure you have that client that is working with you, because and it is on it. Luckily, all the clients that I've ever had go through it were very, very you know, on the computer, online, willing to, you know, ask things. And when they don't know the answer to something, they ask me, and they're like, especially, I went through this even with Spanish speaking clients, so you can only imagine. Mind you, if you do have a Spanish speaking client, there's only one person at the city of Houston that can actually help you through that process, unfortunately. And so if you are trying to get through the process faster, because obviously she's pretty overwhelmed by being the only Spanish speaking agent there. And so you can help your client go through the process by being their designated person. And you know, you can help them go through the process and be that buffer and that you know, the help you to translate with them as well too. So yes, so that's pretty much about it, guys. I mean, I guess if you have some questions, I'm open to answering some questions for you about the process. So if that's the case, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away.
What was that phone number again to get started on this?
There is a phone number at the bottom of this page. I think you mean down here, this. Emails.
Let's see, I don't see a phone number.
You do have frequently asked questions. I know this.
832-393-0550.
Could you repeat that again, please? 832.
Yes. 832-393-0550.
And there it is at the top left.
And this is called the Harvey Homebuyer Assistance Program?
Correct.
And will you be able to email this info to us or no?
Actually, I've recorded the session, so you can go back to the session and revisit and, you know, pause, go forward, all that good stuff.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You got it. And then another thing for you guys to check out as well too, just FYI. So let me go and check out a listing here real quick. Just so I know how the map is a little crazy, and maybe you're like trying to check for a client to see if that property that they're looking at actually qualifies, because it has to be within Houston city limits. So let me go here, let me go to my home page here, and let me find one of our listings here real quick with the brokerage. Okay, we'll read it later. If we go over here to the left, let's look at all of our active listings for the office. And then here, wow, we had quite a few go into pending. That number actually earlier today was at 167, and now it's at 155. My goodness, quite a few contracts went into pending, guys. Okay, so for instance, this one on Cobra Valley. We click it and we look at the tax information right here. See tax billing in city, Houston, Texas. Yeah. Let me see the rest of their taxes. Yeah, and so you see how they pay towards the city of Clear Lake here. And I think, yeah, Harris County. So no, they are not within, no, Port Authority doesn't count. It would need to be the actual city of Houston. So I do not see city of Houston here. So this one would technically not count, which I didn't think it would because it's out there in Clear Lake. So let's do another one so that you can see that it is within. Let's do a whole map search here real quick. And this is how you can look up all of our listings as well too, if ever you're trying to look up your closest listings within the brokerage to do an open house, or if you're wanting to run ads on any of the listings that we have within our brokerage as well too. So let's zoom in a little bit here. And let's just pick, you know, an obvious one. I'd rather pick a house that would be outside if this will work. Nice house, nice listing. Okay, and then let's go. Oh, thanks. You don't have the tax information. That's just great. Let's go to the next one. This is technically in Baytown, so that would not work either. Galveston. Come on. This is at least in Harris, so let's see if this one is lucky. Check the tax information here.
No, it's Copperfield, Cypress.
This is Cypress.
Copperfield.
Copperfield.
It is in Cypress.
Yeah.
The one before was in the Heights, so I think it probably would have, it didn't have the tax information, but it was Houston Heights.
Yeah, let's see.
It's Copperfield area.
And this one didn't want to give me taxes. Well, that's not helpful. Oh,
If we just have an MLS number, is
Mhm.
there a place to put in just an MLS number?
No, unfortunately, you would have to either look it up on the HCAD and see if it, pops up, or you would have to go and, and see where they're paying their taxes to.
Okay,
And see,
thank you.
yeah, the MLS is not that friendly because see, it doesn't even say to which city that they're paying their taxes to. It says city,
Oh,
Houston
yeah.
City of, sorry. So,
Uh-huh.
I mean, they just have it a little backwards there, but you can see that that's who they're paying their taxes to. So you'll see sometimes ports, like the Port Houston Authority, like on this one and stuff. But ultimately, HCAT is a really safe place for you to check them as well too and make sure that they're paying actual taxes towards them. So towards the city of Houston, because the whole point of the program is to develop the city of Houston and within its Houston city limits, because that's where the money was granted to go for. And so that's why they don't do other parts of the city, because it's not necessarily revitalizing any of those areas. Yeah. So anyhow, guys, well, I just wanted to share this with you, and please make sure you have your patience with this program and get ready to really help your client and tell them that there's going to be probably a time when they're crying, okay? Because it is one of those things that it's $30,000, so they ask a lot of freaking questions, okay? And if there's, there's deposits in your bank account that are over $50 that are cash, they're going to ask you questions. Where did this come from? Please write a letter for every deposit of cash, or please explain what these are. And it could be like I've had clients that they're like, well, I just cashed my check somewhere else and then I put cash in my account, and so you got to explain these things and all that good stuff that they do ask you to do. And so just be kind of aware that they do ask a lot of questions. So
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
Is this for single family homes only, or can it also be for manufactured homes?
I'm not sure about the manufactured homes. That's something I would have to ask one of the representatives to see if that's something that they did cover. I would imagine that as long as it's within Houston city limits and it was approved by the lender allowed you to purchase it, that I don't think there would be a problem with it as long as the lender was willing to loan on it.
Okay.
And keep in mind, like they do require an inspection from you as well too. So like for instance, my client was buying a new construction home and they didn't feel like they needed an inspection. They're like, no, it's new, I feel fine with it. And the program itself requires that you get a licensed inspector inspection report. And so we got one of the cheapest inspectors we could find. It was like $300 or whatever, and had him go out there and give us his little, one-page report or whatever it was. And but they do require it. In addition, they have their own inspection as well too, that they send their own person out there as well. And they're generally just checking, making sure your like fire detectors work, that your doors lock, that all your light bulbs work, all your light switches, light bulbs work, things like that. Your AC is working. So just general, things, making sure that the property is habitable for the client. So, and of course, these things take time because of course it's like, oh, well, we, already scheduled the, we already ordered the inspector to go out there. And then it's like, oh, well, I don't know, it's been several days and oh, there he is. He finally called. And then, oh, well, I'm going to go out, 3 days from now. And then you got to wait for his report. And so, it's a little bit of like, what's going on? What's going on? You're doing a lot of follow up. And of course, sometimes you're following up and they're like, no, I don't need anything. I don't need anything. And then suddenly they wake up and they say, oh, well, I need all of these, pages or whatever these documents are. And I need them by like tomorrow, so, or you're going to hold us up. And so that's just kind of how the process is, unfortunately, but definitely worth it in the end. Trust me, while you're going through it with your client, you're like, oh my Lord. But once you're done, it's like, oh, it wasn't so bad. And, what a great, outcome at the end.
Another question, please, quickly. I know you have to go. $30,000 is the maximum that they will get from this program.
Yes, correct.
And that is part of the amount that the lender is going to lend, right? It's not on top of the lender's amount that they have decided that they can lend to this person, to this family.
Correct. So if the client is only approved up to $150,000, for example, that's the maximum amount that they can purchase. So it's not like that they would go out and buy, you know, like say, oh, I'm going to go over my price point because I'm going to get these $30,000. No, it would be that 150 that they're approved for, and then they would get the $30,000 and $30,000 in assistance, and so they would be financing $120,000 for 30 years.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
So
Yeah.
I have a question. Do
Yeah.
they apply through the lender, or do they fill out this separate form on this website that you just featured?
Yes, so they will need to do both. So they need to find an
Okay.
approved lender that is coordinated with the city of Houston, for one, and they need to fully apply for a loan as if they weren't receiving this assistance. And then separately, they would need to fill out this, you know, documents and stuff and get them all turned in with that checklist and all that good stuff. And then of course, here's the website down here that you would email the documents to and all that.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So they're two separate entities, and they do eventually talk to one another, but not until about a week or two before closing.
I see. Okay.
I was wondering, how much money does a client have to have in the bank? Is it more to have less or more?
So this is actually something I've been going over with them. So what my understanding was, because I checked out all their frequently asked questions, I also called this stupid number that's up here, which was to no avail. And the person that I usually speak to is on vacation. So I'm like, oh, that's so great. So it was my understanding that you couldn't have more than $15,000 in savings. But as I've emailed them 3 times and have not gotten a response, I'm almost wondering, because see, like for instance, I had a client that even as we were applying, for instance, we were 6 months before closing and we were applying, and they said, you make too much money. So he was like, okay, well, I'm going to ask, you know, for some time off, or like leave early from work, or not do overtime, and then my checks will come out in a more of a suitable way. And so was the case, because if he could get 2 consecutive checks together, he was able to prove that his income was less. And so even though initially he didn't approve, he was able to approve later. So one of my questions to them was, how much, you know, what's the maximum somebody can have in savings and still get the down payment assistance? And if it's over that amount, whatever it may be, can they make the adjustment and then come back during next statement cycle and present, you know, a less amount? So, but of course, as I think obviously about it, it's like, well, that sounds like a little bit deceptive, you know, but even they were encouraging of the situation of like, okay, we'll wait until these checks look like this and then come and apply, you know. So I will be happy to answer that once I figure out the answer. I'll tell you that. So check back in with me. Okay, guys, well, I appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much. And you guys have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Uh,
Information.